Hey everybody, Mike Iaconelli. Welcome to a brand new In the Shop, and we've got a great topic for you today. You know, probably the single most asked question we get is, what are your favorite baits for big bass? Big bass. I'm talking about, when I say big bass, I'm talking about a bass over 5 or 6 pounds, right? A 5 or 6 pounder or bigger. What's my favorite baits for big bass? And when I stop and think about the lures that caught a majority of my big bass over the years, there is 3 lure categories that keep coming up. For sure, I've caught big bass on other lures. For sure, I've caught big bass on small, little, tiny lures. But when I'm thinking about the sheer number, consistent number of fish bigger than 5 or 6 pounds I've caught in my life, these 3 lure categories keep coming up. The interesting thing is I go over these 3 baits, these 3 lure categories with you for big bass. We're going to be able to target each of the 3 zones of the water column. And you know, if you've watched my In the Shop videos, I'm really big with covering the water column from the top to the middle to the bottom. And these 3 lure categories that catch big bass are going to do that same thing, okay? So let's start on the top. And when I look back and think about my success with big fish, I've caught a lot on this category, which is topwater. The interesting thing about topwater is that when you say topwater, people assume it's just a lure category that is fun to fish, right? Because topwater bites are explosive. But when I think back, for big fish, a lot over my fishing career have come on topwaters. So topwaters, they catch big ones. There's something about a topwater on the surface. When those big fish look up, it appears to be a large, easy meal. And I think that's one of the appeals to why the topwater category catches so many big fish. As a big fish gets older and smarter, they know that something on the surface coming across, walking or buzzing across, is a big, easy meal. And it's a trigger to target big bass. You're going to catch small and medium-sized bass, but consistently, the bigger fish hit a topwater and they like to feed up. Real quick, here's 2 of my favorites I wanted to show you. Any topwater is going to catch a big fish, but these 2 in particular, a big walking bait. This is a Rapala Skidder V. Look how long it is. It's got 3 hooks on it. That thing's probably about 6 inches long. That walking motion is a big, easy meal, okay? When it's sparse cover or open water, that one is hard to beat. But when I want a big topwater, a topwater bait for heavy cover, if I'm around grass or sticks or trees or logs or around a lot of docks, a big buzz bait is absolutely insane. The thing I want with a big buzzbait is I want to make a lot of commotion and I want to be able to reel it slow for those big bass on top. This is a Mullex Lover Buzz SS. This is the big size, okay? And here's the great thing about this buzzbait. Oversized blade with an inline body. It's going to stay on the top. It's going to plane easy, and that blade is just going to a big, easy meal. Big fish like to feed up. Lure category number 1 for big bass consistently, got to be a topwater. I'm going to go down in the water column, and I'm going to go to the middle. And when I think about lures in the middle where I consistently get a big bite, there's no better lure category than a swim bait. A swim bait. I mean, think about it. A swim bait, right? And just like that lure on the top, it was a big, easy meal for fish, for big bass. This is the same concept in the middle of the water column. Listen to me. The one thing I know about big fish, the bigger they get, 5, 6, 7, 8 pounds bigger, is that they target a big, easy meal. And a swim bait gliding or slowly swimming through the middle of the water column, they can't help themselves. It's a big, easy meal. Look at that. It's a big gizzard shad coming through the middle of the water column. It's a big bluegill swimming through the middle of the water column, lazily swimming, lazily gliding. They can't help themselves. And I think that's why consistently when I'm fishing in that middle, right? Not on the top and not on the bottom, these baits get the nod. When it comes to these big glide baits, this one's a good one. This is the Storm Arashi. It's a glide bait designed by Brandon Polinick. The thing I love about the Arashi, it's easy to use out of the pack. You take it out of the pack, you cast it out, and you reel it back. I like to stutter stop it a little bit. When I reel it and I stutter stop it and I pause, this bait will actually turn. And when it starts to do that 360 and that big bass is following it, that's when they eat it. So I like the Storm Arashi for your hard glide baits. And this for sure, when it comes to a big soft swim bait, is one of my favorites. This is that new Gilly. This is the big size, okay? This is the 130 millimeter size. But when you look at this bait, I want to show it to you this way. Look at it in the palm of my hand. It looks like a big bluegill. Like if you were bluegill fishing, that's exactly what it looks like, right? It looks like an adult bluegill. And you can, I'm not a scientist, but if you don't believe me, Google it, research it. Big bass love big panfish. And that thing lazily swimming through the middle of the water column is a killer. Especially when you're fishing a lake that has panfish, and most lakes do. All right, so lure category number 2 for that middle of the water column, big swim baits. Hard or soft. Consistently, the fish that bite these baits are big ones. 5, 6 pounds or bigger. All right, last but not least, and you knew this one was coming, a lure category to consistently catch big ones on the bottom. You knew I was going to say it. Here it goes. It's a jig. A jig. A big, full-sized jig, fished on the bottom, has caught more big bass in my life than any other specific lure category. And this one, my 2 favorite big full-size jigs, of course, the Missile flip out jig, which is a full-size flipping jig, but also the Missile headbanger, which is a big, full-sized football jig, is a great lure for big bass. And I think the reason is just in line with what we talked about with topwaters and swim baits, which is a big profile jig, skirted jig, dragging or hopped along the bottom, mimics a big forage. That thing could be a bluegill injured, it could be a big shad, but really this jig is going to imitate a big crawfish. There's something in a big fish's brain, 5, 6 pounds or bigger, that is wired to eat big crawfish because of the protein value in that. Once again, a big fish, he's not eating a lot of little minnows all day. He's going to eat 1 or 2 big meals, and a big crawfish is at the top of the list. Half ounce, 3/4, even a 1 ounce jig. I like the bigger sizes. It gets down quick. And I like to fish a big, full-size trailer on the back of this jig. A beaver style trailer, a creature style trailer, or my favorite, which is the 4-inch Berkley chigger crawl. And when you put this bigger crawl or creature or beaver on the back, it makes that profile even bigger. Look at that. And I've added almost an inch to the length of that bait. And that action of that pulsating chigger call tails, the little flap, subtle flap, the skirt flaring when you pause, that big profile is a magnet to big bass that are feeding on the bottom. So my lure category for the bottom was an easy pick, big jig, big trailer. Caught more fish over 5-6 pounds in my life on that bait than any other. Man, I hope I answered your question. I have so many come through. What are the lure categories? What are the baits that catch the biggest bass? There they go. Topwater, swim bait in the middle, big jig on the bottom. Throw those lures. You're going to get the biggest bass you've ever caught in your life, I promise. Man, I hope you like these in the shops. Do me a favor before you sign off. If you're not a subscriber to my channel, mash that button down there. See that subscribe button flashing down there? Hit that button, subscribe to my channel. We've got great educational content coming every single week. If you happen to be subscribed already, dude, tell your friends, tell your fishing buddies about Mike Iaconelli Fishing on YouTube. We're here to help them become better anglers. Good luck, good fishing. Use those baits. You're going to get a big bass.